The harsh realities of war leave more than just physical scars, but mental ones as well. BCSN's Christina Weil introduces us to a wounded warrior who found healing from an unexpected source.
Motivation, perseverance, determination are all things you think of when it comes to lessons learned while playing sports. A warrior spirit, one that can fight through any obstacle. But what if you're a wounded warrior? What then? Well, according to Dan Nevins, you dig in and fight harder.
So I was an infantry squad leader in combat operations in Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom 2. And, I was in combat for about 8 months when my life was changed forever by an improvised explosive device that detonated beneath my vehicle. It was November 10th of 2004, so almost 13 years ago. And, in those moments, I didn't know which way was up. I knew I was injured really bad. I could see that my good friend, Sergeant First Class Mike Catalini, made the ultimate sacrifice in that explosion. And, I didn't know, I had to basically go to work on myself. My femoral artery was cut in half. I was losing a lot of blood in this miserable place on the planet. I just reached in and pressed on the wound and prayed that it would give enough time for the medic to arrive. And then, thankfully, Doc Smee showed up, and I had a tourniquet on my leg and an IV in my arm, and off to a combat surgical hospital where I'd have my first of now 36 different surgeries. And I remember when I woke up from my first surgery, and I was still in Iraq, and the nurse looked at me and she said, "You're a very lucky man, Sergeant Evans. We managed to repair your femoral artery. We had to take your left leg below the knee, and we managed to save your right one for now, but you'll probably lose that one too." So in those moments, I just kind of set myself up for a lifetime of disappointment and loneliness. Like, how would my wife love me anymore? How would my daughter look up to me still? And then I get to Walter Reed. I have my welcome to Walter Reed surgery when I make it back to the States, the most painful experience of my life. And then I'm almost 2 years in the hospital, and it's all I could think about was what that nurse said. So thankfully, Wounded Warrior Project met me at my hospital bedside and intervened in my recovery, helping me take chances with my recovery to prove that my disability didn't define me, that I got to define what the rest of my life was going to be like. So thankfully, I had that organization as some hope to hold on to. So growing up military, even growing up in a not so great neighborhood in Baltimore, like, yoga was something that I never would have imagined doing. I don't even think as a kid I knew what the word was. And it wasn't until I got to a really dark place in my recovery, not from the physical wounds of war, but from the invisible wounds of war. It was after my last surgery. It's about 4 years ago. And a friend of mine, I was sharing with her what I was dealing with dealing with the invisible wounds, and she said, "Dan, you need some yoga in your life." And I looked at her and I was like, that's the dumbest thing that anyone's ever said to me in my life. Like, I'm a dude, I don't own yoga pants, I don't have a man bun. I'm like, this is not for me, and I meant it. So she suggested meditation, and she taught me how to meditate, to be present, not to be vacant, but to be present. Then I realized what it was supposed to be, and I started seeing real benefits in my recovery, so I could start to sleep again at night. I didn't feel so alone anymore. And until I had success with meditation, and she said, "Oh, well, why don't you, I think you owe me some yoga." And I agreed to 3 private lessons, and in those lessons, my life was completely changed.
Now Dan is giving back, helping others by sharing his story, and is now able to say something he never thought he'd say.
Almost 3 weeks later, I was in yoga teacher training. And I remember when I graduated, my teacher, knowing I didn't want to be a yogi or a yoga teacher, made me stand up and say, "Hi, my name's Dan Nevins, and I'm a yoga teacher." Craziest thing I've ever said.
What's the message or your goal for the future?
Well, my real goal is knowing that yoga helps heal the invisible wounds of war, whether that's from combat or a war of just how we grew up, that yoga is a great tool. And so my message for all the people that I teach is to invite a veteran to yoga, because you just might save their life.